Today, I have something a bit different and new for you. This video is actually sponsored by Manta, which is an app and site for online webcomics and graphic novels. They were so kind to give me some pages of one of their stories called High Society, and I get to tell you about it and my personal opinions while reading it. Now I will say this is a sponsored video, however, I have been subscribed to Manta myself for over 3 years now, and I do very much enjoy a lot of the stories on there. If you know my video series called Life of Nobility, a lot of people have said that it reminds them of those type of webcomics, and it is a warranted suggestion because I do consume those a lot. So if you see this and you think you're interested in this story and maybe more like it, feel free to take a look at Manta and see if maybe you are interested in subscribing yourself. Now, without further ado, let me tell you about High Society. Now, High Society is one of those stories where a commoner has to pose as a member of high society. And of course there is some romance thrown in as well. Now I will say, as in many of those types of stories, one of the protagonists isn't exactly a green flag guy. In fact, the male lead is quite the walking red flag. So it's important to note that while you might read this story, you might dislike this character a lot, which is warranted, of course, and I can say from personal experience, it does not take away the joy from following the story. Now, this story takes place on an island called Santanar, and I did have to write that down because I have no idea how to pronounce it. However, there you have the standards of beauty in very high regard, just like the ocean goddess the people there believe in preaches. However, wherever there's something gold and sparkly, there's also something dark and sinister. In this case, that will be the slums of Gomorrah. Now, Gomorrah is where we are introduced to our main character and female heroine, Adele Vivi. When we get introduced to her, we know her as a belle, a boy who is a shoeshine boy. So he cleans the shoes of people in order to gain some money. Now, she is disguised as a boy for her own protection, but she's in quite a bit of trouble when we are introduced to her. Places like Gomorrah aren't exactly safe for young women. She owes large sums of money to pay for her protection. Due to that, she finds herself in quite a predicament and is eager to find ways to make money and escape a possible gruesome fate. Now, it just so happens that someone else also is getting desperate. In this case, it would be our male lead, Duke César Bonaparte. Now, Cesare is supposed to marry Miss Lucrezia de Laval. She is a noble lady from a family which is held in high esteem and has a lot of power, just like House Bonaparte. But for one reason or another, he has no interest at all in marrying this beautiful young lady. In fact, he is so eager to escape this marriage that he considers finding a young girl to pass off as one of his family members and sell her off to marry the son of House de Laval, Lord Esdras de Laval. Now it just so happens that while he ponders about the idea of it, a certain shoeshine boy is taking care of his shoes. And as Abel hears of that, he or she sees a chance for her to escape. One last-ditch effort, and she reaches out. She offers to pose as Duke Bonaparte's younger sister, and as such agrees to get married off to Esdras de Laval in her brother's place. Now, of course, someone like Duke Bonaparte takes her for a fool at first, given her boyish disguise. But once she lifts her disguise, he realizes that she's quite the beauty, and, well, one thing leads to another, and he agrees to this plan. 3 months of time to get used to the life of nobility, to act like a proper noble lady, and successfully pass as Lord Bonaparte's younger sister. Now this should be quite the task for someone of low upbringing. However, seeing as her life is at stake, she's determined to get herself out of the misère and save her own life, no matter what. She makes a great effort, which does not go unrecognized. In fact, Cesare seems to start seeing her in a different light. You see, at first he looks at her quite arrogantly. She's just some dirty wench she picked up on the street. A girl who would even lose her dignity just in order to get a meal for herself. Though it still intrigues him more than it probably should, given their disguises. Now, I do not want to tell you too much, as I still hope you will enjoy the story for yourself, but I can tell you this much. Convincing a bunch of stuck-up nobles that you are a long-lost noble daughter is no easy feat. And given that there is still the bride-to-be for Cesare in the picture as well, do you think it would be easy to just erase that betrothal and make her give up on a rather attractive man? I must say that while reading this story, I personally grew rather angry at the male lead here. There are many instances where he will cross borders, where he will go against what morale would dictate. In a way, he is an antagonist while still being a protagonist as well. However, it's also intriguing to see it play out, to see how Adele, or Adelaide Bonaparte, as she's called now, handles the situation she finds herself in. Over everything is always her looming fear of being discovered, because should she fail, Cesare no longer has a use for her, and all her efforts to save her life would still be in vain. Because after all, Lord Bonaparte is a very selfish character. He cares little about being a good Samaritan. He cares about his own benefit, to a point where he crosses boundaries when it comes to morale. Now, it is rather annoying at times to see him do those things and see how he thinks of them in his own position. He sees himself as something better than the rest, in a way. He was so focused on himself and his own gain that he doesn't know how to interpret his own feelings at times. And as far as I have read this story, and it is still ongoing, I'm still not quite sure what his feelings towards Adele or Adelaide really are. If it is just this feeling of power and control, knowing that she is in a situation where she cannot afford to upset him, or if there really are true feelings of affection that are more than just a lustful craving. If you don't mind a possible love interest being an antagonist as well, I believe you could rather enjoy the story. If you find yourself interested in finding out all the nitty-gritty details and learning more about Adelaide's story and how she adjusts to life amongst high society, feel free to take a look at Manta comics and graphic novels and read High Society. The story is currently in season 2, so you have a lot of reading to catch up on before you'll have to wait, but they do upload weekly. And I personally had this story in my library for a while now, and I'm always excited for the next part. I will put some links in the description for you so you can find it easier. And I thank you very much for taking the time to be here with me today. Sweet dreams, my sweeties, and happy reading. Thank you to my members, Radio Pierce, Lee Hua, and Holly Henry.